Hello. In this video, we're going to be making rhythms using expressive chords. So something like this. And you can get stuck for a really long time just looping one or two notes and making these small adjustments to a few parameters and getting completely different, well, not completely different, but somewhat different results. I'm completely addicted to it. So anyway, that's what we're going to make in this video. Okay, first we have to look at expressive chords. This is expressive chords. If you don't have it in your MIDI effects, then you can just go to Packs, search expressive chords, download it, and then you'll have it. How it works is you just send it a MIDI note and it spits out a chord. It works chromatically. So you can see on this side, C, that chord, C sharp, this chord, D, this chord, D sharp, so on and so forth, all the way up the thing. The main thing we're interested in is the strum. So if we increase this to 100%, watch over here on the right side. And then we can change the articulation, go down rather than up. We can do it synced. So you're not really going to notice that here, but it's actually synced with the clock now. And if you want, you can open this up and actually change the articulations, however you want. So you would just slide these around, hit save, and then you have your own custom articulation. The tilt is basically going to increase or decrease the velocity with the strum. So if we go positive, you can see it starts really low and goes up to 100. So it starts at 50, goes up to 100. If we get negative, it goes down in velocity. There's the invert. So it's just going to invert the chord. And that's basically how expressive chords works. That's what it's supposed to be used for. What we're going to do is actually change the chords inside. There's a few ways you can do it. With the newer version, you can just select the cell, hit learn, play a chord, and now it's in there. I find it's better to just use the modulation part on the import. So if we go in here to a MIDI clip, we're going to go every quarter bar like that. And then the last clip that you select after you then hit import, and it's going to pull it into expressive chords. So if I hit this, now you can see there's only 4 cells there. So that's what we're going to do, but with a drum rack. So if I delete all this and find a percussive rack, so I'm going to use this one. This is going to work best if all the percussion kind of works together, if that makes sense. So if you have a kick drum, snare drum, crash cymbal, this will be a little bit trickier because those things are going to sort of overtake each other. Whereas with these sounds, they can kind of all play at the same time and it's going to sound okay. So if we then bring our expressive chords in, you can see, look right here, they're actually playing outside. So we could kind of just shove the MIDI around to force it down, but a better way to do it so that we can kind of get the actual notes that we want is just to open up the clip here. And so you can see, since this is a drum rack, it automatically does this folding. So we see all the pads that are there. We can just add the notes that we want. Something like that. Maybe I'll spread these out a little bit. And then we can duplicate it. And on this one, I'll do all of them. next one, I'll do maybe half of them. And I'll delete these. And I don't know, it doesn't really matter what you have in there, but if you want a really specific thing, you can do it. Okay, so now we have this, you know, sort of weird collection of different things we could do. So I'm going to click that, open this up, hit import. So if we hit strum, you could really just stop there and just kind of draw on the notes. I think this will work. Yeah. But I don't like using MIDI. Well, I don't like using like drawing MIDI. Anyway, I'm going to bring in an arpeggiator and put it on the other side of the expressive chords. And you can see that it's not actually doing the full strum. And the reason is because the gate is set to 50%. What that means is if we were to put this on a quarter bar like the arpeggiator is, and we draw in all the notes, this is what the arpeggiator should be spitting out, or what we want it to, but it's actually doing that. So it's only giving us half, 50% of the actual quarter bar. If you put it at 75%, it would be like that, 25%, so on and so forth. We want it to be completely full. So we're just going to put that at 100%. Now we have the full strum. So you could actually use this rhythmically. So if you modulated this with like an expression control or an LFO or something like that. Something like that. Next, we can mess with the steps. So as it is right now, it's going to step up a whole octave. So if we were to do multiple steps, eventually it's going to go outside of what we have kind of filled up in this drum rack. So it's better to kind of use smaller steps. The more steps you're doing, the smaller step size. So I guess, you know, whatever, the semitones. I find that when you do these really long sort of, you know, really anything beyond 2 steps, you kind of lose the rhythmic side of it. Okay. The next thing to keep in mind is, like we talked about before, this isn't synced to the clock in any way. You can sync it, but you're going to kind of lose some of that like swing that it has. I think even more fun is to turn the sync off for both of them. It can be fun to group them and assign both of them to the same macro. So then the actual strum time you get the idea. You could do all kinds of weird stuff. Anyway, we're going to leave it like this. And then we're going to select both of these and group them. So now it's in this little thing here. And we can add a DS kick. We need a drum bus, obviously. hi-hat. And I'm going to add a note echo. This is basically going to be a gate delay. So I'll mute the input, turn the feedback off. And then we can duplicate this whole thing. And what we're going to do is shift it up a bit. So if we look at this, right now, stepping between these two notes, this next one down, it's doing the same thing. So we're just going to use this pitch to shift it up a few notes. Maybe we can put this one synchronized. Let's do, how do we want to do this? Yeah, we'll do an envelope MIDI. Bring this in here and we're going to constrain it to the top side of this octave. So this is, no, we're not going to do that. How do I want to do this? Yeah, I guess we could just, we'll pull it down here. So this is stepping up one step. So this envelope is only going to get triggered when this steps up one semitone. So now we'll map that to not the synchronized one, this one. This is kind of interesting. So the way this is set up right now, it's getting a little bit messy because to change the actual drum hits that are coming through, we're going to play different notes. But if we go up, then our sort of triggered MIDI envelope here is falling out of line. So we could do a couple of different things. You could actually put the arpeggiator in here directly, so this one would have its own arpeggiator, this one would have its own arpeggiator. And that actually makes a lot of sense because then if we do that, copy and paste, this one we could have at 1/8. And kind of go a little bit faster. But it starts to get a little, it just kind of can end up being a little bit confusing because you have all these different arpeggiators in there and they're going at different rates and you may want to set up macros and stuff like that. So it just kind of depends on how you want to, sort of how deeply you want to go into the rack. But what I think is kind of interesting about just having it here is now the rhythm is actually changing. So what we could do is duplicate that and let's say bring this envelope up here and this one will adjust this other expressive chords. I'm going to turn the sync off. stuff. I would say, probably like I already said, the most dangerous part about this is actually how you can just end up losing time just turning knobs. So like you sit here and play with the arpeggiator, and then you come in here and move this stuff around. And that's just with this particular MIDI clip and drum rack. So once you start to get into other racks with different configurations of these MIDI clips that we loaded in, you can just kind of mess with this endlessly. But really cool way to get interesting, strange rhythms and stuff like that. I'll make a few of these racks and upload them to my Patreon where you can download them and try them out. But as usual, I suggest you make them yourself. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.